Recapping one of our top stories, President Joe Biden has admitted he doesn't know what highly confidential documents he left in the office he used in the years after his term as Vice President. Joining us live now is Loosley, non-resident senior fellow with the United States Study Centre. Stephen, thank you for your time. Let's start with that story. It's extraordinary. Joe Biden leaving classified documents in an office he used while he was Vice President. What fallout are we seeing so far and what can we expect?
Well, the fallout's been immediate in the sense that the Democrats have pursued former President Trump for the documents discovered by the FBI in a raid at Mar-a-Lago, documents that had national security classifications. Now, in politics, you really need to be above reproach. So the fact that as Vice President, Mr. Biden apparently left some documents behind in this office that he was using at the University of Pennsylvania is very deeply embarrassing. Now, in American politics, they don't do nuance well. The fact that these documents are probably few in number, about 10, with classifications that may or may not be particularly secret, will be lost in the wash. For the Republicans, they've already announced that they're looking at a congressional committee to investigate. But the trap for them, Gabby, is if they pursue the current president very, very vigorously over this issue, then that opens the door for an even more vigorous pursuit of former President Trump over the documents at Mar-a-Lago. So it's going to be messy, and we really need to see what the classifications of the documents that the former Vice President was holding and that have now emerged.
Is it strange that there was a delay in this information coming to light?
Not if you think in terms of the congressional midterms. Now, in fairness to the Biden administration, what President Biden's lawyers did at the time in November these documents came to light was exactly consistent with US law. The National Archives were contacted, the documents were handed over, and there was cooperation from that time to the present time between the archives and the White House, in direct contrast to President Trump, former President Trump, arguing that the documents at Mar-a-Lago that he had were actually his because he had personally declassified them. And as we saw, it took an FBI raid to get hold of the documents for the archives. So you have a circumstance in which there will be a comparison and contrast, but a lot of that will be lost in the wash of finger pointing across the aisle in Washington, D.C.
Stephen, I want to get your assessment of North America's Leaders Summit. What will come out of it? Will we see border measures improve in the US?
I think it will go beyond border measures. Certainly the president making that visit to the border in El Paso shows that he is determined to have a more effective response to the migration dramas that the United States and other countries confront. What is happening at the moment in Mexico City with the Mexicans and the Canadians is to try and arrive at a regional solution with Central America, whereby people wanting to immigrate to the United States have a very clear legal pathway established, so they don't have to undertake very perilous, sometimes treacherous journeys to the US southern border. It is a real issue in American politics, particularly in some of the border states such as Texas. So what the president of Mexico, the American president, the Canadian prime minister have been endeavouring to do is to try and arrive at a consensus not only on the migration issues, but some of the other issues that plague the region, such as drug smuggling, fentanyl in particular. For the Mexicans, it's gun smuggling from the US to Mexico. So it's a very deliberate approach that they've taken. It's a very cooperative approach. And it seems to be working in the sense of an absence of friction and a much better focus on real problems and potential real solutions. As to what happens, Gabby, only time will tell, but at least there is an apparent consensus about how to handle some of these issues between the three countries involved and the countries of Central America.
Just finally, Stephen, you've written a piece today about Kevin McCarthy finally being elected as a Speaker of the House after 15 rounds. What do you make of the fighting and the drama that was involved just to elect him? And what does it really say about the next 2 years in US politics?
The election of Kevin McCarthy was the longest series of ballots, of course, in the US House of Representatives since 1856. That tells you something of the levels of division, particularly within the Republican Party, with the Freedom Caucus not being prepared to support McCarthy for Speaker, only being prepared essentially to abstain in the vote. The curious thing with this division going on in the House is out in Kentucky, the president and Senator Mitch McConnell, the Republican minority leader in the US Senate, were at a bipartisan event for the refurbishment of a bridge that links Kentucky with Ohio, which shows how things can be done if people cooperate. I think what we're going to see in the US House is the creation of a number of congressional committees to investigate the COVID-19 pandemic, the withdrawal from Afghanistan, Hunter Biden's computer, and so on and so forth. The challenge for the Republicans is to make these kitchen table issues for the American public and not just be seen to be pursuing vendettas. The difficulty that Kevin McCarthy has is he pursued the speakership with a single-minded dedication, but it seems to have been absent a platform or program for congressional business in the future, unlike most of his predecessors.
Stephen Loosley, we have to leave it there. Thank you so much. Appreciate your time today.
It's a pleasure. Thanks, Gabby.